The wedding date had been fixed for months. Invitations were sent, the designer lehenga was ready, and every corner of my parents' mansion was decorated with fresh jasmine and roses. On paper, my life looked perfect. I was about to marry Arham, the only son of a business tycoon, whose name alone opened doors in the city's elite circles. We had met 2 years earlier at a charity gala. He was charming, confident, and had that rare ability to make everyone in the room notice him. At first, I thought I was in love, or maybe I was just in love with the idea of being loved by someone like him. He gave me expensive gifts, took me to foreign vacations, and introduced me to a glittering world I had only seen in magazines. My parents adored him, friends envied me, everything seemed ideal, but beneath the sparkle, there were shadows I could no longer ignore. Arham had a sharp tongue when things didn't go his way. Waiters, drivers, even his own staff, he spoke to them as if they were beneath him. I remember the day it first unsettled me. He had yelled at our housemaid, Sana, for accidentally spilling tea on the table. She had stood there trembling, her hands clutching her dupatta, apologizing again and again. I told Arham it was just an accident. He looked at me and said, "People like her only understand discipline, not kindness." Those words stayed with me. Sana had been working in our house for nearly a year. She was barely 20, with big brown eyes and a quiet grace in the way she moved. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, but whenever I did talk to her, she smiled, a soft, genuine smile. I knew bits of her story. Her father had passed away, and she was the sole earner for her mother and 2 younger brothers. She worked long hours yet never complained. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a storm of events, fittings, and social gatherings. I barely had time to breathe. One evening, exhausted from a day of shopping, I came home to find Sana in the kitchen. She was rolling dough for chapati, humming under her breath. There was something so calm about her presence that I just stood there for a moment, watching her. She noticed me and quickly stopped humming, as if afraid she'd done something wrong. "Don't stop," I told her, smiling. It sounded nice. She gave a small laugh. "It's just an old song my mother used to sing when she cooked." We talked that night, not much, but enough for me to realize how little I knew about the people who worked for us every day. She told me about her brother's schooling, how she hoped to save enough to get her mother treated for her chronic illness, and how sometimes she skipped meals so her family could eat. And something inside me shifted. It wasn't pity I felt. It was admiration. I had been surrounded by wealth my entire life, yet here was someone with nothing who carried herself with more dignity and strength than most people I knew. As the wedding day came closer, my unease grew. I started noticing more things about Arham, the way he dismissed the florist's suggestions because she probably lives in a single room, the way he rolled his eyes when a driver made a wrong turn, the way his affection for me seemed to shine only in public, never in private. One night, a week before the wedding, Arham and I attended a dinner party. On the way home, our car stopped at a red light. A barefoot child knocked on the window, selling roses. Arham waved him away sharply. "These beggars are a disease," he muttered. My heart sank. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. If I married him, would my life be a golden cage? Would I slowly become like him, blind to the struggles of others, indifferent to kindness? The answer terrified me. The turning point came 3 days later. I found Sana in the backyard, quietly crying. Her mother had fallen sick again, and she needed money for medicine. I offered to help, but she shook her head. "Baji, I'm not asking for money. I'll work extra hours, clean the whole house twice if needed. I don't want charity." Her pride, even in hardship, hit me harder than anything Arham had ever said. That's when I knew, the life I was about to step into was wrong for me. And the person I truly respected, maybe even loved, was standing right in front of me, wearing a simple cotton shower kameez, hands still smelling faintly of flour. The next morning, I made my decision. I was going to leave Arham. The morning after my decision, I felt strangely calm. Not happy, not relieved, just certain. I told myself I would speak to Arham that evening. But breaking an engagement wasn't like canceling a dinner plan. There would be shock, anger, gossip, and 100 questions from relatives. My parents would be devastated. The city's high society would whisper for months. Still, the thought of walking down the aisle toward a man I no longer respected felt worse than any scandal. That evening, I called Arham and asked him to meet me at a quiet cafe instead of his usual favorite, an expensive rooftop where the entire city could see us. He arrived in his usual tailored suit, sunglasses still on despite the setting sun. He leaned back in his chair, smiling lazily. "So, what's this about? Cold feet?" he asked, smirking. I took a deep breath. "I can't marry you, Arham." His smile faltered. "What? I'm calling off the wedding." My voice shook, but I didn't look away. He stared at me for a long moment, then laughed, an incredulous, mocking laugh. "Is this some kind of joke? You're 2 weeks away from becoming Mrs. Arham Sheikh. You think you can just walk away?" "Yes." I forced my voice to be steady. "I don't want a life where respect is only given to people who can afford it. I don't want a husband who looks down on others." His eyes darkened. "So, this is about the maid. You've been acting strange ever since that tea incident. Don't tell me you're throwing away everything because of some servant." I felt my cheeks burn, but not from shame. "Her name is Sana, and yes, she's part of the reason. She taught me more about dignity and kindness than you ever have." For a moment, his jaw tightened, and I thought he might raise his voice. Instead, he stood abruptly, tossing a few bills on the table. "You'll regret this. No one walks away from me." Then he walked out without looking back. I sat there for a few minutes, breathing deeply, letting the reality sink in. It was done. When I returned home, the news had already reached my parents. My mother was pacing in the living room, eyes blazing. "Do you know what you've done? People will laugh at us. Your father has been making business plans with his family." "I'd rather be laughed at than live a life I hate," I replied quietly. My father, usually calm, was silent for a long time before finally saying, "This is your choice, but choices have consequences. Don't expect our help if you regret it." I nodded. I knew they wouldn't understand. That night, I found Sana in the kitchen again, wiping down the counter. She looked at me, startled. "Baji, what happened? The whole house is talking." "I called off the wedding," I said simply. Her eyes widened. "Because of me?" "No," I shook my head. "Because of me. But, you did help me see what really matters." She looked down, fidgeting with the edge of her dupatta. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I smiled. Over the next few weeks, my life changed drastically. I stopped getting invited to certain parties. Some friends stopped calling. The whispers in the market, the lingering stares, they all became part of my daily life. But I also started noticing things I had ignored before. I went with Sana to her neighborhood once, carrying bags of groceries for her family. The streets were narrow, lined with small tea stalls and children playing barefoot. Her mother welcomed me with a warm smile, even though she looked frail. "You're like an elder sister to my Sana," she said, holding my hand. That evening, I sat with them on the floor, eating simple dal and roti. And for the first time in years, I felt full in a way no expensive meal had ever given me. Sana and I began talking more. We shared stories, mine about a life of privilege that sometimes felt hollow, hers about survival, sacrifice, and small victories. We laughed, we argued, we planned. I started helping her brothers with their schoolwork, and she taught me how to cook her favorite recipes. One night, as we washed dishes together, she said softly, "You've changed a lot, Baji. You smile more now." I smiled at that. Maybe I'm finally living the life I was meant to. But life has a way of testing happiness. And mine was about to be tested in ways I couldn't imagine. It had been 3 months since I walked away from the wedding. The chaos had settled into a quieter kind of disapproval. People no longer openly whispered when I entered a room, they simply avoided me altogether. My mother still refused to speak about the incident, while my father buried himself in work. But I had found a strange kind of peace in my new life. My days were filled with small, honest work, helping Sana with her household chores, tutoring her brothers, sometimes visiting the market to sell her mother's homemade pickles. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't luxurious, but it was real, and yet, I could feel the undercurrent of tension growing between us. Sana still called me Baji, out of habit, but there was a warmth in her eyes whenever she looked at me that made my heart skip. I wasn't sure if it was gratitude, friendship, or something deeper. One rainy afternoon, we were both in the kitchen, laughing over a failed attempt at making jalebi. The rain hammered against the windows, the smell of fried batter filled the air, and for a moment, everything else faded away. She looked at me with that soft smile again, and I realized, I didn't just admire her. I loved her. The realization scared me, not because of my feelings, but because of the world outside that would never understand. A wealthy woman leaving her fiancé for a poor maid was scandal enough. Falling in love with her would be unthinkable for most. But love doesn't wait for permission. The test came sooner than I expected. One evening, as I was returning from the market, I saw Arham standing outside my house. His car gleamed under the streetlights, and his expression was a mix of arrogance and curiosity. "I came to see the woman who threw her life away," he said, smirking. "And for what? To play house with the help?" My jaw tightened. "Go home, Arham." He leaned closer. "You think she loves you? She's using you. You'll wake up one day and realize you traded gold for dust." Before I could respond, Sana stepped out of the gate, holding a basket of vegetables. She froze when she saw him. Arham glanced at her and scoffed. Perfect. The star of the little drama. I could see the shame in Sana's eyes, the way she wanted to shrink into the shadows. And something inside me snapped. "She's worth more than you'll ever be, Arham," I said, my voice steady. "And if you think I regret my choice, you're wrong. I've never been happier." His smirk faded, replaced by something darker. "You'll regret this," he muttered, before getting into his car and speeding away. That night, Sana tried to avoid me, keeping herself busy in the kitchen. I finally cornered her by the sink. "Why didn't you tell him to leave?" She shook her head. "People like him don't listen to people like me." I took her hand. She looked startled, but didn't pull away. "You're not people like you. You're you, and you matter to me more than anyone else ever has." Her eyes searched mine, as if trying to see if I really meant it. Then she whispered, "Why? You could have anyone. Because you're the only one who makes me feel like myself," I said softly. "And I'm tired of living a life that isn't mine." There was a long silence before she smiled, that rare, unguarded smile, and squeezed my hand. The weeks that followed weren't easy. My parents found out about my feelings for Sana through a relative, and the confrontation was brutal. They told me I was disgracing the family, that I